You're listening to the Shared Security Podcast with Tom Eston and Scott Wright, exploring the trust you put in people, apps, and technology.
This is your Shared Security Weekly Blaze for July 15th, 2019 with your host, Tom Eston. In this week's episode, Zoom video conferencing 0 day, massive fines being issued for violating GDPR, and who might be listening when you talk to your Google Assistant. Looking to protect your laptop, smartphone, and key fobs this summer? Well, this week I'm excited to announce that you could win one of 2 Silent Pocket vacation prize packages, which includes a passport wallet, medium Faraday sleeve, and 5-liter dry bag. Check out our post on Twitter at SharedSec or on Instagram at SharedSecurity for contest rules and how to enter. And don't forget, listeners of this podcast receive 15% off at checkout using discount code SharedSecurity. Visit SilentPocket.com to see the latest Silent Pocket products built to protect your digital privacy. Hi everyone, welcome to the Shared Security Weekly Blaze, where we update you on the top 3 cybersecurity and privacy topics from the week. These podcasts are published every Monday and are 15 minutes or less, quickly giving you news that you can use. Do you or your organization use Zoom for video conferencing? If so, and you happen to be using a Mac, you'll want to pay close attention to this story. The problem? Well, a security researcher last Monday disclosed that a vulnerable web server is automatically installed on Apple Mac computers during the installation of the Zoom client. What this means is that any website could be used to forcibly join a user to a Zoom call with their video camera activated and without the user's permission. On top of that, the researcher also discovered that the vulnerability would allow any web page to conduct a denial of service attack on a victim's Mac by constantly joining a user to an invalid call. And if that wasn't enough, when you uninstall the Zoom client, the web server continues to be installed and active. The researcher disclosed the vulnerability to Zoom back in March, but after many meetings and fixes that didn't work, the researcher decided to disclose the vulnerability to the public. The next day, Zoom issued a patch to remove the web server and to allow users to uninstall the Zoom client, which will now fully remove the web server. Zoom's CEO posted a blog post apologizing to customers and noting that they will be improving their bug bounty program, as well as issuing another update that took place over the weekend of July 13th to further lock down the video on by default setting. Also, Apple made a surprising move on Wednesday by issuing a silent update to all Macs automatically uninstalling the Zoom web server. Many people don't realize that Apple has the power to issue patches and updates to Macs connected to the internet at any time, and while this seems creepy, it's actually a good thing when Apple can take immediate and swift action to patch a critical vulnerability without user interaction. Check out our social media feeds for the latest updates on this developing story. The General Data Protection Regulation, or also known as GDPR, is now starting to penalize organizations which are found to have violated these now enforced consumer privacy protections in the European Union. Last week, the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK has issued British Airways a staggering fine of £183.4 million, which is about $230 million, because of the data breach affecting 500,000 customers last year. This $230 million fine is roughly 1.5% of British Airways revenue and is the largest fine issued to date for violating GDPR regulations. And that's not all. The global hotel giant Marriott was also issued a fine of $125 million for their data breach, which impacted 339 million customers across the world. Of course, both companies can contest the fines to make their case, but this is the first time we've seen a large financial impact due to a GDPR violation. But does issuing fines for violating regulations actually help prevent data breaches? If we use PCI DSS compliance fines as an example, not much will probably change. PCI DSS, which stands for the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, is what US merchants who process and store credit card data need to comply with. Fines from the card brands can vary between $5,000 to $100,000 per month, depending on lots of things like the size of your business and the type of non-compliance you happen to be violating. And in some extreme cases, violations can prevent a company from taking credit card payments. Now, PCI has been around a long time, and have we seen the amount of data breaches related to credit cards go down? Not really. In fact, as I talk about on this podcast all the time, data breaches seem to be increasing. So is that the game that's being played? The more data breaches that happen, the more money the regulators make? Look, I'm sure fines are a pretty severe penalty for most businesses, but when it comes to giant companies like Marriott and British Airways, will this just be another accounting write-off, or will GDPR really set the stage to force more organizations to take data privacy seriously? And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is unprotected attack paths that allow threats to compromise vulnerable targets in the cloud and data center. But traditional microsegmentation is too complex and time-consuming and offers limited value that's hard to measure. But there's a better approach, Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable and management that's zero touch. At the core of Edgewise auto segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which automatically builds unique identities for all communicating software and devices by combining cryptographic properties of the workload with risk classifications. Edgewise protects any application in any environment without any architectural changes. Edgewise provides measurable improvement by quantifying attack path risk reduction and demonstrates isolation between critical services so that your applications can't be breached. Visit edgewise.net to find out more about how Edgewise can help stop data breaches. These days, it's rarely a case of if you'll be hacked and more of a question of when. Once a hacker gets past your defenses, they cover their tracks and systematically infiltrate your network to steal information or shut your business down. And more often than not, they do it quietly and methodically. There is one single source of truth that can expose the hacker: the packets on the network. They contain the information necessary to understand where a hacker may be, what they're stealing, and where they're going next. That's where NetScout comes in. Their smart data approach gives you high-resolution, consistent, and continuous monitoring everywhere in the IT infrastructure and in any workload. NetScout gives you visibility without borders. Their solutions detect the most comprehensive array of threats and provide visibility any place a hacker travels, even in the public cloud. With NetScout's visibility without borders, you'll get the visibility you need to see across any network, data center, cloud, 5G, and more. Rethink the way security is delivered for your digitally transformed business. Get a clearer view at www.netscout.com. If you think Amazon is the only company that is taking heat about privacy issues with their popular voice assistants, think again, as Google is also in the hot seat, as they admitted last week that Google contractors can access voice recordings from Google Assistant. This all started with a Belgian journalist who obtained audio files which contained voice recordings of about 1,000 users. The recordings were found to have had personal data like names and addresses disclosed, as well as conversations that would be deemed extremely private. Google hires contractors to assist with making translations as well as making the technology better by having humans review thousands of voice recordings. The Google Assistant works just like Amazon and Apple's voice assistants by saying a wake word or key phrase like "OK Google." But like all of these voice assistants, they will sometimes record unintentionally if you happen to say a word similar to a key phrase, or when recordings for some reason continue when you're finished asking a question. Google issued a statement noting that the contractor who disclosed these recordings violated their data security policies and that they do hire language experts to do transcriptions on about 0.2% of recordings, which are not associated with user accounts. So what do you think? If your personal information was disclosed in a Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa recording, would you be concerned? Or are you okay with giving up a little bit of your privacy for the convenience of using a voice assistant? That's a wrap for this week's show. Visit our website, sharedsecurity.net, for previous episodes, links to our social media feeds, our YouTube channel, and to sign up for our email newsletter. First-time listener to the podcast? Please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you like this episode, please share it with friends and colleagues. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Weekly Blaze.